I'm Riley Parker.
I'm Michael Webster.
I'm Dan Jorgensen.
And I'm Owen Millet.
And this is our evaluation of Boondocks.
All of the data was collected by a survey that was distributed to all the Boondocks employees. So first we're going to be talking about open and closed systems. So this first survey question, Boondocks has an open system where individuals can communicate with leaders with ease. The options are, strongly agree to strongly disagree, right? So as you can see here, 52.9% of the employees strongly agreed that Boondocks has an open system where they can communicate with leaders with ease, right? Only 29.4% said somewhat agree, but that's still an agree, right? 11.8% said somewhat disagree, and I don't know what the percentage is, but it's like one person said they strongly disagree. So overall, it looks like they have a pretty open system where people can communicate. This question was pretty much the opposite of that, and it's just seeing how they word it, or seeing how they'd answer if you word it more negatively. It's just saying like that people in leadership decisions don't promote communication with the company, and 47.1% of that somewhat disagreed with that, and another 17.6% strongly disagreed. So they're sticking to their original claim that it's a very open system, and good 17.6 and 17.6 strongly agree and somewhat agree. So it's still a minority that people that think their voice is not heard. So some good recommendations for promoting more of an open system within the company would be like just building relationships with employees, like more team building exercises where you participate as a manager with them, checking in with employees frequently when they're doing their job, just coming over, talking to them for a few minutes, talking to them like they're another human, all of this kind of stuff. And talking to them in consistent employee evaluations is another good way, so they can voice their concerns with the company, they can voice all their thoughts. And for anything that they're scared to tell you in these employee evaluations, you can use an anonymous suggestion box to facilitate organizational change that you may not want to hear, they may not want to tell you.
All right, so I'll just be talking about the inclusivity of Boondocks. We asked all the employees, your manager's leadership style creates a collaborative and an inclusive work environment. Responses ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. As you can see right here, the blue, 58.8% of the employee base strongly agrees that the manager's leadership style creates an inclusive work environment. We have 35.3% somewhat agreeing, so it appears a vast majority of people who work at Boondocks agree that Boondocks is an inclusive environment and the manager likes to foster a collaborative work environment as well. So recommendations for the company is honestly just keep up the good work. The culture of respect for people of all upbringings, racial identity, sexual orientation, and gender. Looks like it's already, everyone agrees on it, everyone likes how the manager fosters this environment. We want to make sure all employees are involved with the progression level of Boondocks as a company or as an organization. So what that basically means is we want the employees to feel like they're involved in how this organization is growing, and we want the managers to involve them as well. So try and bring them into more of the conversations involving that, into the processes involving that. And overall, Boondocks does a good job of keeping an inclusive environment. So our only recommendation for this, the biggest one, is just keep up the good work. And then next, we asked if the employees felt valued in their organization by their manager. So we asked, you feel that your work is valued and appreciated by management? So again, the same responses, strongly agree to strongly disagree. We see that 52.9% somewhat agree, and then 29.4% strongly agree. And then no somewhat disagreements, but 17.6% strongly disagree with this statement. So what we kind of took from this is that most of the company, again, agrees that their work is valued and appreciated by management, but there is kind of a larger slice of the pie than we'd like that strongly disagree with this statement, and we just want to talk about how we can recommend that to fix in a second. But first we'll go over the growth as an employee. We asked if you feel that your manager keeps your growth as a new employee in mind. 52.9% strongly agree with this statement, 23.5% at somewhat agree. So once again, the majority agrees with this statement and feels that the manager has their growth as an employee in mind, their progression in the company and moving upwards. Recommendations for both of these slides. First one is we want to acknowledge hard work from employees. Stuff like just saying, good job, you're doing great, Thank you for all the hard work you do, it goes a long way. More frequent employee evaluations to discuss the progress of an employee would be helpful as well. From our evaluation, they happen about once a year, so maybe once every few months to see how the organization is coming along exactly. We want to make sure employees understand how to grow within the company as well and know exactly how their promotions are coming up, what they can do to achieve that, and what they can do differently to stand out in the company. And then another recommendation is just build a healthy management and employee relationship to build trust. We want employees to feel like they can come to their managers with anything, and building trust is a key aspect of that.
We also wanted to talk about rigid versus flexible structure when we were doing our analysis. We wanted to see first how Boondocks employees viewed having a rigid or a flexible structure and what they really wanted. If they wanted to have more opportunities or if they wanted their structure to be rigid, to have those clear set rules and what they need to follow. So the first question here says, rigid structures are more efficient in organizations when guidelines are clearly provided and strictly followed. We have 76.5% agreeing and 11.8% strongly agreeing. So there's a very strong support that rigid structures are more efficient to help this organization grow. So it shows support for a rigid structure at Boondocks, and this is what the employees want to have there. So this is just talking again about Boondocks specifically, saying instead of just a rigid structure in general, saying that how it's applied to Boondocks, how rigid is the structure that Boondocks has. So it says Boondocks is a rigid structure where guidelines and policies are given and strictly followed. So 52.9% agree and 17.6% strongly agree, giving a total of about 70%, saying that Boondocks does have a rigid structure, and it's in agreement with the majority of those employees saying that they want that rigid structure. So that's what Boondocks is showing. So our recommendation for this is to keep making sure that Boondocks does have a rigid structure, or maybe even up it a notch to where Boondocks can make very clear rules, very clear regulations and guidelines for employees to follow throughout the day so that they can follow their tasks. This would help setting daily goals for the employees so they can know how to follow and see their progress throughout the day. Having clear available instruction with all the many things that are going on at Boondocks. Sometimes employees can get confused. If there's available instruction with either managers who are willing and able to help these employees to give them clear and easy instruction, or if there's resources they can look to also find that instruction to where they can find the answers to their questions, it would be very helpful. And also just having a clear written rules list to where employees can just know the do's and do nots. With the Boondocks employees wanting a clear structure, putting these three things in there will help have a very clear, rigid structure for Boondocks and allow them to have what the employees want.
Alrighty, the next thing we wanted to ask in our evaluation was about communication as a whole and throughout the organization on a broad scale. So our question was, your team and management are good at communicating your tasks and expectations to you. And as you can see right here, most of the data supports that this is actually something that Boondocks does a good job of, and that they are good at communicating what needs to be done from each employee, and that each task is understood by them, and that they don't have any questions, or if they have questions, they feel like they can ask about those questions. So we have about 58.8% saying they somewhat agree, and the blue section right here is the strongly agreed, where 29.4% of people are, and you can see that's a majority of the whole data. And some recommendations we have along those lines are that communication is valued within the organization, and like keep doing what you're doing because it seems to be working, and employees feel like their communication to them as tasks is received and that they can communicate any questions with anyone else. And then our recommendation is just to keep up discussions between employees and management. In this question, we wanted to kind of ask about scheduling and how productive the teams are when they are scheduled. So majority of people on this one somewhat agreed and strongly disagreed. So there's a huge issue somewhere in scheduling with productive teams. So what recommendations we have for this one is like finding groups that work well together and scheduling them together to promote more efficient work, and making team goals to promote inclusivity and encourage productive work. Even if the team is not fond of other members, like just promoting teamwork in general and having like a group that constantly works together so they can work through their differences and be able to rely on each other. And this also provides opportunities for promotion and an easier way for the organization as a whole to determine who can move up in the company and who would do good in a leadership position. And that's all, folks.